Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Thea and I make videos about bullet journaling. Today we are going to set up my bullet journal for March, which is actually Endometriosis Awareness Month. Before we get to it, I'm flipping through my February setup so you can see how I ended up using these spreads. I actually tried making stickers this month and these mushrooms were so cute that I stored them in my weekly spread. Anyway, like I said earlier, my theme for March was inspired by Endometriosis Awareness Month. I've done a theme related to this topic 2 times before, so it was a bit difficult to come up with a theme that wouldn't be too similar with the other ones. In case you didn't know, I have endometriosis and got diagnosed 3 years ago. It took 12 years to get the diagnosis, and I struggled with the symptoms ever since my first period started at the age of 11. The reason why I wanted to talk about endometriosis is that I believe there are many people who may suffer from this disease without actually knowing it. I had it for years and thought painful periods were normal, so I never went to see a doctor. I am going to talk about periods and other endometriosis symptoms in this video, so if you are sensitive to this topic, I suggest that you mute this video or maybe watch some of my other videos where I talk more about bullet journaling. You might be wondering what even is endometriosis, and it's a chronical illness where the tissue similar to the lining of the uterus grows outside of the uterus. This can cause a lot of pain and different kinds of symptoms. Painful periods are probably one of the most common endometriosis symptoms, but there are a lot of other possible symptoms as well, like bloating and digestion issues. As I said earlier, my symptoms started when I was only 11 years old and had my first period. I remember that I was in a lot of pain the night before, but still tried to go to school because I didn't have fever or anything like that. Before the first lesson started, I called my mom and she said that it might be possible that my period started. I went to the bathroom and it turned out that it was the case. Because I felt very embarrassed and didn't want to go to the school nurse's office to ask for pads, my mom told me that I can come home and skip school that day. My lower belly was hurting a lot, so I went home. My mom also had painful periods as a teenager and knew taking ibuprofen would help, and luckily it did. We hadn't talked about periods yet because I was very young and my mom thought I would get them later as a teenager. Getting my first period at such a young age was very difficult for me because I was pretty sure that I was the only one in my class who had them, and I didn't even tell my friends at first. I also had quite a heavy flow, so I always was scared that my period would leak during the school day, and that definitely happened a few times. In secondary school it was a lot easier because my friends got their periods as well. However, my periods were worse and I was in a lot of pain. I always had to take painkillers on the first 2 or 3 days of my period, or otherwise I would just be in bed crying because the pain wouldn't go away if I didn't take the medication on time. One day, for example, I was at school and my period started, but I didn't have any medication with me, so I wasn't prepared. It felt like someone was stabbing my lower belly with a hot knife. I asked if I was allowed to go to the bathroom because I wasn't feeling well, and luckily my teacher allowed me to go because he saw that I was really pale. I actually had to lay down on the bathroom floor because I couldn't stand straight. It honestly felt like hell and I cried because I was in so much pain. My mom picked me up from school and we went home. I took some pain medication again, but had to wait a really long time until it helped, and I thought I wasn't going to make it. Waiting for the pain to go away was horrible because all I could do was to lay in bed, cry and just wait. When I felt better and could function again, I felt really bad that I had to skip school because I forgot to pack medication with me. My parents were luckily always very understanding and they let me come home if I wasn't feeling well. I learned to track my periods and made sure that I always had some pain medication in my backpack just in case. My periods were still uncomfortable, but I didn't have to skip school as often anymore. I thought it was completely normal and everyone had painful periods sometimes. I never threw up, fainted or anything like that, so I thought my pain wasn't as bad. I will talk about my story a little bit later again, but for now I thought I would explain my cover page a little bit. I drew a menstrual cup and I wanted to make the spread pretty and aesthetic, so I went for a neutral color palette. In the middle we have a mini calendar and I actually highlighted the week when we have Endometriosis Awareness Week here in Finland. On the left side I drew some medication which actually look like Legos, but let's ignore that. As always, I have listed all the supplies that I use in the description box, so make sure to check that out if you are wondering which pens I use, for example. Now I'm actually making my quote page for this month and I thought I would just write some common endometriosis symptoms and the definition of the illness so it would be easy to spread awareness once I post my theme in my Instagram account. Endometriosis can actually be hard to diagnose because the symptoms may vary a lot and it doesn't always show up on ultrasound, for example, which is why it's often called invisible disease. I believe that the part of the problem is also the misconception that painful periods are normal and women's pain isn't always taken seriously, especially if you are in pain because of your periods. That being said, you can also suffer from endometriosis even when you are not on your period, and some people with endometriosis might not even have painful periods. When I first heard about endometriosis and googled it, I was sure that I had it because I had so many endometriosis symptoms like the ones that I'm now crossing off. Suddenly it all made sense and I knew why I had this weird shoulder pain sometimes, which felt like someone was poking me with a knitting needle. I thought I had been sitting in a weird position while studying and that was the reason why my shoulder was hurting. This realization happened in the same year that I got my diagnosis and I will soon talk more about what happened and how I got diagnosed. Now my cover page is actually almost finished and I just added some gold sparkles and washi tape to finish it off. I really like how this cover page turned out and hope you like it too. If you don't want to make an endometriosis theme, you can definitely just draw the flowers and maybe some kind of vase for the cover page. Next I'm setting up my monthly spread and I actually printed some neutral colored stripes on sticker paper because I didn't have a washi tape that would have been perfect color for this page. I got this idea from Journal Away as he often uses this technique instead of using washi tapes. Anyway, back to my endometriosis story. When I started studying at university, I began to have other endometriosis symptoms as well. At this point, I just had painful periods, bloating and stomach issues when I was on my period. When I started dating my boyfriend, he actually told me that I should go to see a doctor because I was still experiencing period pain, which made me very tired. I also started having pain with urination and got an UTI for the first time, which was very uncomfortable. After the first infection, I started having UTI symptoms without the infection. Here in Finland you can easily get antibiotics for UTI without taking the test if you have had it once before. Before calling the healthcare center, I always tried drinking cranberry juice and lots of water so I wouldn't have to take antibiotics. One time I thought I had UTI and had been taking antibiotics. Suddenly I had a very high fever and my stomach was hurting really bad. I thought I might have a kidney infection, which you can get when UTI is not treated correctly, for example. I went to see a doctor and they took a urinary test and gave me some other antibiotics that should work for the infection. The antibiotics didn't work, however, and I was still having a fever. I took pain medication, but the fever was still really high and I had to go to the ER. My mom came with me so I wouldn't have to be alone. We waited for 3 or 4 hours before I saw a doctor. I told her that I think I have a kidney infection, but she wasn't sure if that was the case. Because of that, she sent me to take a urinary test again and also a blood test. Turned out that I was having a very bad infection according to my blood test results, but my urinary test was clean. The doctor was confused, so she sent me to a flu test, even though I said I didn't have any flu symptoms. Finally, they started giving me antibiotics through IV, so my infection would start to heal. I was feeling better and didn't have a fever anymore, so I was able to go home. A nurse came over to my home in the next few days to give me IV antibiotics and take a blood test. I was really grateful that I didn't have to stay in the hospital and was feeling better. They never ran any other tests for me though, and I still thought I had a kidney infection. A year or 2 later, I started experiencing the same symptoms again. I couldn't walk straight and had a high fever even though I had taken some pain medication. I went to the healthcare center and told them that I think I have a kidney infection, which I've had once before. This time they didn't take as many tests and started giving me IV antibiotics straight away to treat the infection. I was again able to stay at home, and after a few days I was feeling better. For some reason I felt like something was still wrong and finally decided to book an appointment to see a gynecologist. At this point I had never had a gynecologist appointment because I was anxious about the idea that someone would inspect my private parts. When I went to the appointment, the doctor decided to do an ultrasound. Right away she saw that I had a big cyst in my lower belly. She wasn't able to see my ovaries because my lower belly was full of the big cyst. I was really scared because I had never had anything like this happen to me before. The doctor told me that the cyst isn't cancerous and I have nothing to worry about. She would, however, book another appointment for me so they can inspect the cyst better and decide what we will do for that. She said that the cyst might be caused by endometriosis. At this point, I didn't know that endometriosis could cause cysts, as I thought it would just cause pain. While I was waiting for the next appointment, I started having pain in my lower belly again and also fever. I called the ER and said that I have a cyst and asked if I could have the gynecologist appointment earlier as I was having pain and couldn't even stand straight. They told me to come over and they would run some blood tests. Now I was pretty sure that I didn't have a kidney infection, and I was also pretty sure that the 2 other infections weren't that either. I was able to see a gynecologist who did another ultrasound, and the cyst was a bit larger than the last time. It was almost 9 centimeters tall and 7 centimeters wide. The doctor called another doctor and asked what we would do now. He told them that I have kissing ovaries and he thinks the cyst is caused by endometriosis. At this point I was very confused because I had never even heard about kissing ovaries and it didn't sound very good. Because my blood test results were okay and the pain medication was working, the doctor sent me home and said that I should come back in the next day or 2 if my situation gets worse. At home I still had pain and it did only get worse. I started having fever again as well, so I went back to the doctor. My blood test showed that I had an infection, so they did the ultrasound again. This time the gynecologist was specialized in endometriosis and she was pretty sure that I had it. The cysts turned out to be 2 ovarian cysts and one of them had an infection. Because I had been taking antibiotics only 2 weeks ago, she was pretty sure that the antibiotics wouldn't cure the infection this time either. Therefore, I would have to go through a surgery to remove the cysts and the surgery would be next week. Endometriosis can usually only be diagnosed through laparoscopic surgery because it doesn't show up in ultrasound in many cases. I actually drew the illustration of the woman in the previous spread because I wanted to show my endobelly without actually showing it. I drew 4 little scars in the woman's belly because many people who have endometriosis have these kind of scars, and I also have those too. In my case, I needed the surgery to remove the endometriosis tissue. I was really scared because I had never been in surgery or under anesthesia before. I had never even broken a bone, and it was a shock that I now had a chronical illness. The fact that I would have the surgery after the weekend was a good thing because I didn't have as much time to overthink it, but I was terrified still. Before I will talk about the surgery, I thought I would quickly talk about what I'm drawing. I didn't want to draw just the same doodles over and over again, so for my happy tracker spread, I drew some medication jars or cans, and I tried to make them cute by drawing some leaves in them. Honestly, this theme was a big challenge for me because I wanted to do a pretty period theme, and periods are not often considered to be pretty and they are kind of a taboo. I was also really nervous about recording this voiceover because this was a very personal topic. I hope this video will help to spread awareness though and be helpful for some of you who might have similar struggles. Because I don't talk about the spreads I'm making as much in this video, feel free to ask if you have any questions about how I'm going to use them, and I'm happy to answer you. And now back to my story. The laparoscopic surgery is usually quite an easy operation and you can usually go home on the same day. I didn't sleep well the night before the surgery because I was really nervous and I had to go to the hospital very early in the morning. I was sure that I wouldn't wake up after the surgery and it was difficult to see how worried my parents were. I had to walk to the operating room and I was terrified. I hugged my parents and boyfriend before I went inside the room, but I couldn't look back because I didn't want to start crying. Luckily the doctors and nurses were really kind and I felt safe in the operating room. They said that everything would be okay and explained every step they were going to do next before I would fall asleep. Everything went okay and I fell asleep very quickly. After the surgery, I woke up and was feeling pain. Waking up was weird because I didn't know what happened in the surgery and if it succeeded. I was really scared that they had to remove my uterus or ovaries and I could never have children. And yes, I am a overthinker in case you are wondering. Luckily, everything went well in the surgery, but I had to stay in the hospital for a few days because I felt very weak and they had to remove quite a lot of tissue. I was actually feeling weak because of the heavy medication I was given and I almost fainted when I tried to go to the bathroom. The day after the surgery, the doctor told me how it went and what they found. I had stage 4 endometriosis, which is severe. They found endometriosis from both of my ovaries and in the uterus. I also had endometriosis in my diaphragm, which explained the shoulder pain I was having before. They were able to remove the cyst, but couldn't remove the endometriosis in my diaphragm. Now the plan would be to start a hormonal medication, which helps to treat the symptoms. Recovering from the surgery took about 2 weeks and I was in pain for only the first 2 or 3 days. After the surgery, I have luckily been feeling a lot better and I'm now almost pain-free. Before I found the right medication for me, I had to try a few different contraceptive pills. Thanks to my current medication, I haven't had my period in over a year, and that's the biggest reason why I have been feeling a lot better. I don't need painkillers anymore, and before the surgery I had to take them at least 3 days every month. Accepting the fact that I have a chronical illness has been very difficult though. Endometriosis can't be cured, but it can be treated. One of the first things the gynecologist told me when she diagnosed my endometriosis was that I should try to have children as soon as possible if I want to have kids. People with endometriosis often struggle with infertility, and the fact that I might struggle with it too in the future has been very difficult. I'm now 26 years old and I still don't know if I want to have children or what I'm even doing in my life. The fact that I have already waited for almost 3 years after getting the diagnosis stresses me out because I'm afraid that I will regret later that I didn't try having children sooner. But I can't know yet what is going to happen, so I've been trying not to worry about it too much. Let's just say that as an overthinker, it has been difficult. Anyway, this is where the story ends and how I am doing at the moment. I'm very grateful that the hormonal medication has worked for me and I'm doing better now. I didn't even realize how much pain I had until I was pain-free. Not all people with endometriosis are as lucky, and hormonal medication might not work for everyone. As far as I know, endometriosis isn't a life-threatening disease, but it can be very painful and it needs to be talked about more. I believe that spreading awareness will help to get the diagnosis earlier, and hopefully we will have a cure for this disease in the future. I also hope that there will be some non-hormonal options in the future, so people who don't tolerate hormones well can get their symptoms treated as well. I'm also very grateful for my family and boyfriend who have always taken my pain seriously. Maybe even more seriously than I did. Their support has been so important, and I never had a feeling that I was just imagining my symptoms. The gynecologists I met were also very understanding and took my situation seriously. My situation probably would have been a lot different if my endo didn't show up in the ultrasound, as it can be a lot more difficult to get the doctors to believe you when there isn't any visible proof that would show where your symptoms are coming from. I believe this illness runs in our family, and I can't believe that I'm the only one who has got the diagnosis, as my grandmother had very difficult symptoms as well. I also can't believe that not one single doctor told me to go to see a gynecologist even though I had UTI symptoms without the infection. If you are someone who is having any kind of problems down there that don't seem to be normal, please go to see a gynecologist and don't wait for 2 years like I did. It's not normal if you have to take a lot of pain medication every month. And it's not normal if your period hurts and makes you cry from pain every month. Waiting for the diagnosis for 12 years is way too much, and some people have to wait for even longer. This disease should be talked about in school in my opinion, as I believe endometriosis is even more common than we know. Getting diagnosed takes 7 to 10 years in average, which is way too long. Because endometriosis is really hard to diagnose, I thought I would talk about some things that can help when you are trying to get the diagnosis. It can be difficult to get the doctors believe you, so tracking your symptoms and menstrual cycle is really important. Then you will have some proof of your symptoms, and that can help to see repeating patterns and whether your symptoms are related to your cycle. All gynecologists or doctors don't know about this disease or how to diagnose it, and because of that reason it might be a good idea to do some research and find a doctor who specializes in endometriosis. There also are some Facebook groups for people with endometriosis, which are really great if you need support or want to read about other people's experiences. I joined a Finnish one and it was really helpful because I knew what to expect from the surgery, for example. If you are someone who is struggling with this or are in the journey of getting the diagnosis, my DMs are always open and feel free to message me if you have any questions. I'm not a doctor, but I can listen and give you support if that's something you need. One other thing that I would like to mention is that according to the medical science, there is no cure for endometriosis. I've seen stories where people tell you that you can cure endometriosis with eating right kinds of foods, or if you love your uterus enough, you will be healed. Or that if you buy some kind of course from an online coach, you can heal your disease. Eating healthy can definitely help with endometriosis symptoms, but you can still have endometriosis even though you are not experiencing pain. While there might be some cases where the diet has helped, and I'm really happy for those people, it doesn't work for everyone. For example, I am a vegan, ate healthy, and still got very bad endometriosis symptoms, which made me go to a hospital. It's very frustrating to hear misinformation about endometriosis and that you can cure it if you only eat right kinds of foods and exercise, because it makes me feel like I wasn't doing enough and the fact that I have this disease is my fault. After all, we are all individuals, and what works for some people might not work for others. For me, surgery and the right kind of medication have been the best way to treat the endometriosis. I do love hearing about other people's stories, and I think it's very important that we share what has worked for our chronical illnesses. However, it's not okay to tell people to try this and that so they will be cured, because you can never know what the person has already tried or went through. I guess what I'm trying to say is that do not give me advice if I'm not asking for it. You can share your experience, but don't tell me what I should do. I hope this makes sense, and sorry about the rant. Anyway, I guess that was all I had to say about endometriosis. We are now making the last spread of this video, which is my first weekly spread. I thought I would explain this layout a little bit because I haven't used it in my previous videos. If you are someone who has a lot of repeating tasks during the week, this layout can be very helpful. I made little boxes on the top of this spread where I can write all the different events and appointments I have during the week, and I also have a big running task list where I can write all tasks I have to get done. I marked down the days when I did the task on the left side with a little dot, and this way I can also see how long it takes for me to finish one task. If you are having a busy week or big projects, I would highly recommend trying out this layout. Now it's time for the final flip through of my March bullet journal setup. I was definitely out of my comfort zone with this theme and it challenged me a lot, but I'm very happy how it turned out. I know this video was a bit different because of the voiceover, but I hope you were still able to get some inspiration or new ideas from my bullet journal setup. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to my story, even though this can be a bit of a heavy topic. If you are still here watching and enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate if you press the like button and maybe leave a flower emoji in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts about this theme, and if you are someone who has endometriosis as well, I would love to hear your story too. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye!